What is up, everybody? We are back. We're doing a ranking show. I'm excited. Our first consensus rankings. It is Friday, May 19th. So, we're still, 3.5 months away from the football season. There's a lot that I think that's going to change in these rankings, but we want to kind of get out, let's just say like a pre training camp rankings, and then we'll probably re-rank these guys maybe mid to late August before the season starts and see how things change. As always, I'm joined by my father, Jeff. What's up, Dad?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, it'd be a good idea before the regular season starts near the year in the training camp, take a look at them and see if anything changed. Maybe we could discuss if there's injuries or something like that. So that we all know the effects on that on fantasy. But how's everybody doing on this wonderful Friday?
Yeah, injuries will happen. There's even a couple situations where there's a couple situations, like in Tampa Bay and kind of San Francisco, where we don't even know necessarily who's going to start the season. So we're approaching this like everyone's going to be healthy. Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, these guys are going to be healthy and going to start the season. But of course, when we do our next rankings, that's going to change. So we'll get right into it. Today we're looking at quarterbacks 24 through 17. So we're doing the top 24. This is kind of to cover all of you who play in 12-team leagues and super flexes or 2-quarterback leagues. So this kind of covers everyone. So we're starting off with the 24 through 17, but we're going to mention some guys that didn't make the list. There's several guys. It feels like quarterback feels a little deeper this year, but I don't know if it feels like that every year in May, mid-May. And then by the time you get to September, the reality sets in. But some guys that didn't make our list, our consensus top 24, Jimmy Garoppolo, Tannehill, Pickett, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, of course, CJ Stroud, Baker Mayfield, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder. So there's, 8-9 guys right there that they are probably going to start a lot of those guys and play most of the year. So makes sense. There's 32 teams, 32 starting quarterbacks. Dad, of that group, who can you see kind of has the best chance to kind of that make it into that top 24?
I think I got two of them. I think two of them earmarked. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he's not a fantasy giant, he's a pretty consistent quarterback. And Mac Jones, I'm thinking Mac Jones is going to make a little bit of a turnaround and be more like the first year Mac Jones. They got a real offensive coordinator there now, and so that's what I think on those guys. Kenny Pickett, maybe. The rest of them, I guess, they got to kind of prove it to us.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I mean, if I'm just kind of checking, like Garoppolo's biggest thing, he doesn't stay healthy. It seems like he can never stay healthy. But, he's in 2021 when he played 15 games, looks like he was in that top maybe like 17, 18 in QB scoring. 2019, he played a full season. Just double checking real quick. It looks like he was in like the top maybe 14, 15. So it's basically if he stays healthy, he's probably going to be in there. He's probably going to average 15, 16 points per game. And problem is for him is just staying healthy. So I think that's a good call there. What about Trey Lance? I want to ask you real quick before we get into number 24. Trey Lance, let's just say it comes out. He's going to start the season because Purdy's not recovered. Would you put Trey Lance in this top 24 knowing he would start the season and potentially win the job because of that?
Maybe, I guess. If that scenario happens, it's because Purdy's not ready injury-wise. I know we're not really figuring out injuries here, so if Trey Lance was going to start the whole season, Yeah, I think he would be. He would definitely be in it.
Yeah.
Because we know he's got some wheels. He can run
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And you got to trust 49ers offense and coaching staff. They know how to call plays and stuff like that. So
Yeah. He'd probably be the one here that would have the biggest jump. These other guys are kind of fringe top 24, top 20 guys. I think I would put him like maybe in the top 15 somewhere or something. But we'll see as we get closer and we redo these videos. But at number 24 coming in is the rookie Bryce Young. He's our consensus QB 24 as of now. Dad, Bryce Young, what do you expect from him? I think I saw a Vegas over under of like 26 touchdowns for him, which seemed high. But what do you expect from Bryce Young this year? Do you expect like a Herbert type of rookie year, a Mac Jones kind of rookie year?
yeah, I think the mid-20s touchdown, 25 to 30. I think. I think the big thing would be interceptions with him, but we'll see how the wide receiver core kind of shakes out. It's kind of a mishmash of guys now, but
Mm-hmm.
some of them proven, like DJ Chark and there's some other guys there, but
Thielen.
yeah, but I think 25 to 30 touchdowns, maybe 10 interceptions or 15 interceptions, just
Mm-hmm.
because he's a rookie. So, but that's how I would see it shake out.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see that 27 touchdown or 20, I think it was 26 in Vegas. I'd have to go back and look just because you don't see that very often from rookies. Actually, I think only two rookies since 2000 have thrown more than 25 touchdowns. It's Baker Mayfield and Justin Herbert. So no one's good done 25 or more, and that includes guys like Andrew Luck, who only threw 23 touchdowns. He did throw for over almost 4,400 yards. So it would be interesting to see. I do think Bryce Young can give us a rushing floor as well. 400 yards or so rushing. Even though he's not gonna be a runner, but he's gonna be like a Mahomes like runner, in my opinion, where he's gonna create with his legs. Try to get a pass in. But then, if nothing's there, he's going to just take off and run. And that's, you never see Mahomes designed runs, maybe like a few times a season or something, but it's usually just him creating plays with his legs. So I can see that with Bryce Young as well.
Yeah, I have another source, ESPN's projections on Bryce Young. They have 19 and 13, 19 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So
yeah, that seemed a little more realistic, if I'm being honest. But I'm going to bank on he gets at least to like 22, 23 touchdowns. I think he can have a low interception rate, and I think he can, throw for close to 4,000 and run for 400. So I'll put him here, also because of potential. You got to give a little leeway to potential here as well. So, like, we kind of know what we're getting with Garoppolo, Tannehill, right? We know what we're getting with those guys. So I think I put Bryce Young here just because of the potential. So our next, we actually have two tied, 23-22, and that's Jordan Love and Brock Purdy. So, Dad, I think you were a little higher on Jordan Love. You had him ranked 20th. I had him ranked 24th. What did I have? Looking, I think I had him 24th. So, Dad, what Jordan Love?
Yeah,
what are you expecting there?
I think it's his chance. He sat for 3 years, and he's got to go out and prove it. And I think he's going to surprise some people. I know we just talked about Bryce Young, where I just said I could see him having 25 touchdowns, but that was a high end. Somebody like Love, I'll just say Love and Purdy, I think are going to be in the low 20s in touchdowns. But is he going to be efficient? Yeah, I think he'll do fine. And I like to see the guy succeed personally, I don't want to see the Packers do well, personally, but
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
think he has
go ahead.
a great running game, but excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, with Jordan Love, we don't really know what to expect. We haven't seen anything. We've seen like one game. It was against the Chiefs, like in Kansas City. So we can't really like judge him off of that. He started one game since he was drafted in 2020, right? So how you can't. That one game against the Chiefs was not that great. He threw for 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Ran the ball 5 times for 23 yards. But again, you're in Kansas City against the Chiefs, like that's not a good measuring stick, I would say. I think Jordan Love has a lot of potential to be kind of like what Aaron Rodgers did. Like no one expected Aaron Rodgers to turn out to be, an MVP Hall of Famer when he took over for Brett Favre, right? So, I mean, Rodgers did struggle that first year. He wasn't like great, but he wasn't terrible. So I think it'll be interesting to see. Like he has a lot of intrigue. I think like if you're playing in a 1 quarterback league, taking him late in the round just as a flyer as your second quarterback, if you have like an established guy, might not be a bad idea. With Brock Purdy, could he be higher? Yeah, the guy only started 5 games, so we have to keep that in mind. But those 5 games, he was a top, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. He was the 9th best quarterback in the league, fantasy-wise, during those 5 weeks. He was averaging 18.1 fantasy points a game and 4 point per touchdown, for a passing touchdown. So, he's going to be in a system that basically we just talked about it with Garoppolo. It's just like it's almost like a system that's kind of devalued the quarterback a little bit in terms of like you can put in the last pick in the NFL draft as a rookie and he can be the 9th highest scoring fantasy quarterback just because that system works. If you're accurate, which he was, he had a completion percentage of 67% over those 5 games. And so he was super accurate. He's gonna get the ball into his playmakers, CMC, Deebo Samuel, IU, Kittle, right? You don't have to do too much. But I think we have him this low just because you gotta temper expectations a little bit. I think there's been a lot of cases of guys in sports in general where they have these good stretches, and then they just have nothing, right? They had that good stretch. They took the league by surprise, and then they just like, okay, what happened to them type of player. So I think that's why we have them behind a couple of our next guys. At 21, we have Derek Carr. Derek Carr on a new team. Derek Carr's, pretty consistent in terms of his numbers, I would say. You're probably going to get low 4,000s in the passing yards and I don't know, mid-20s in touchdowns. He's never had more than he's had 32 touchdowns once in 2015. He's never had, he had 4,800 yards one time, but other than that, it's been closer to about 4,025. So, Dad, what are you hoping from Derek Carr this year?
Yeah, I think he's gonna kind of stay status quo. In that in the mid-20s, I don't think there's enough, Saints offense. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great. So, my God, I just heard something about Michael Thomas had hardware removed from his ankle. It's like, my God, that's been going on for like 2-3 years.
Yep.
So, I mean, that kind of affects Derek Carr. I know he's got Olave and stuff like that, but I don't expect much more than than what he's done. And that's why I think the Raiders got rid of him. You've reached your ceiling. Okay, this is all we're going to get out of you. Time to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And for that reason, like if you want to take a chance, I know we have Carr over like a Purdy or a Jordan Love or Bryce Young. But like if I had to choose between those three, I'm gonna choose probably one of the other three just because there's the potential there's more potential there. It's like, do you want the safe 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions and 4,000 yards, or do you want potential with Jordan Love or Brock Purdy, right? So these aren't necessarily, I think Carr is better than Purdy type of rankings. It's just if we had to put money on it, we know what we're going to get from Carr. Purdy's a little bit, Love's and Bryce Young, they're all question marks. So that's kind of why we have Carr a little bit higher than them. And I agree with you, kind of status quo with him. Stafford's an interesting one, was obviously injured last year, and the Rams just had a pretty terrible year last year. But in 2021, Stafford put up 4,900 yards passing, 41 touchdowns, which is what you need from basically non-running quarterbacks. You need those type of monster numbers, and for that reason, he was QB5. He was QB5 in total points. He averaged over 20 points a game, fantasy-wise, in 2021. Dad, do you think he gets back closer to 2021, or do you think he kind of falls into like that 30 touchdown, mid 4,000s passing yards?
Yeah, I don't think I didn't see enough off-season movement in the Rams roster. The biggest thing about Stafford, last year he was getting killed by the pass rush. His offensive line stunk. He looked like, I watched him many years in Detroit. In the last few years in Detroit, he was getting his ass kicked, left and right. And that's what we had a repeat of that last year. So I think the key to him, is to his success, of course, as in a lot of quarterbacks, he needs a decent offensive line. But the Rams, they put themselves in salary cap hell, so they got to get rid of a bunch of guys, and they can't reload the roster as quick.
Yeah.
So this year I think is kind of the in-between year for Matt Stafford, I think. So there's he's not going to have 4,900 yards and all it. If he gets 30 touchdowns, I'd be shocked. So
yeah, I don't know how shocked I'd be if he gets 30. If he gets mid-30s, I'd probably be a little surprised, but I think he can throw 30. But again, like you said, the offensive line, they did draft a guard in the second round, I think a tackle in the fifth round. So they added a couple guys in the draft. Maybe one of those guys will turn out to be a starter or something. I don't know what if they made any like off-season moves in terms of beefing the offensive line up. Yeah, but another question is just who's he going to throw to besides Kupp? When he had those 40 touchdowns, he had Kupp and Woods, and then Kupp and Beckham. He had two guys there. Plus, Van Jefferson had a good year that year. I think he had like 800 yards or something, and Tyler Higbee in there, and
those
and things like that. So
Jefferson and Higbee are still there, but we don't have OBJ or Robert Woods was part of it, but
you don't have that second receiver because Jefferson, he does what he does, kind of that deep play guy. A third receiver comes in, as a third receiver. We'll see. We'll see if someone else can step up. But yeah, I think Stafford can get, I think he can get 30 and 4,500 passing yards. Just because also I think the team's going to not be very good and they're going to need to pass a lot. So this is kind of their last hurrah. So I think they're just going to go for it, Next on our list is Geno Smith. We were talking about it and we talked about him yesterday in our video that we will release. He was like QB5 or 6 last year. He led the league in completion percentage. He threw 30 touchdowns. He He'll give you every year that he started, which is 3 years in 2013, 2014, and last year he averages about 350 yards, 330 yards rushing, which is a decent floor. Only threw 11 interceptions, had 4,300 yards last year. Dad, why is everywhere you look, Geno is right around here, and we have him here too?
Yeah, it makes me it makes me feel kind of stupid. What's the problem with you, Jeff? I guess last night we were talking about him, and I was kind of surprised at the number of yards rushing, 300 and some yards. I know it's not great, but and the amount of touchdowns he had, and passing touchdowns. So, boy, if you need a candidate for moving up, near top 10 or something like that, this is a guy. But I think all the other ones in front of him, we're expecting certain things, and this is where we see Geno slotted right now.
Yeah, it's tough. It makes me rethink it as well, and I guess it's just like, all right, I do. It took us until week 8 or 9 to finally be like, oh yeah, Geno's legit. We didn't believe it for the first half of the season. No one did. No one thought it was going to happen, and then no one believed it when it was happening. And I think
we're waiting for him to fall apart, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He pretty much didn't.
No, he didn't. He didn't at all. We're kind of doing that again this year. Just like, all right, that was good. Let's see it again. But it's like, he has DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and now Jackson Smith and Jigba. He has Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. He has Noah Fant as his tight end, who's like an okay tight end to throw to. He's going to get his 500-600 yards. It's like, what are we worried about, I guess, that's changed? Like, Seahawks had a really good draft as well. Their defenses look better. So it's just, I don't know. I agree with you. I guess we'll talk about it now rather than at the end of the video. But if there's one of these 8 guys that could jump into the top 10 or 12, I think it's Geno for both of us.
Absolutely. I totally with you. It's I guess it's from so many years, watching NFL football, and we see kind of a guy make a good season, and we still have a, for me, it's still, you need to prove it, and I think the guy will do well. I think it's nice to see somebody hanging around for 10 years and gets a second shot, and he finally looked pretty good. So.
Yeah, and so second shot, like so late, like the 2014 and 15 was his last starting year. So that's a long time ago for him to go in between.
The Jets, yeah.
Yeah. But our next guy is Russell Wilson. He is number 18 on our list. He's actually tied with Kirk Cousins in our rankings. I put him at 18 just because I had him lower. I had him at 20. If we're wondering why Russell is over Geno, I actually had Geno over Russell. Dad, you had him at 15. I'll start here. I'm just a little worried that he is kind of cooked, that he's not that good anymore. He was so reliant in Seattle on his making plays with his legs, whether that's extending a passing play and finding a guy wide open, or running or something like that. And I just think that it's possible, if you look at his last 2 years now, he ran for 277 last year, 183 the year before. I think it's possible, his legs, he just doesn't have that ability to kind of escape these guys anymore. And that's what made him so good all those years in Seattle. He was just god awful last year. And I'm a little worried that that's closer. He's closer to last year than he was, 2020, his last full healthy year. even in 2021, he wasn't that great. I know he had some injuries and probably came back too early, but
he broke his hand or something, I think.
Yeah, but he played 14 games and 25 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, 3,100 yards, 180 yards rushing. He's had some injuries now the last couple of years, so I'm just worried that he's not Russell Wilson anymore. So, Dad, you have him at 15. What's your reasoning there?
I go to the coaching, and that I got to believe Sean Payton is going to, make it so Russell Wilson, he's going to have the game plan, the play calling, and all that other stuff that will make Russell Wilson kind of thrive, I guess, is what I'm trying to see. Or, if he doesn't, I mean, if he stinks again like he did last year, the guy's history, I bet, I mean, do I expect, what he looked like in Seattle in his heyday? Probably not. The running for these guys always kind of tapers off a little bit. So we'll see, and some of it's wishful thinking because honestly, he's my dynasty quarterback and I need him to friggin' produce since he screwed me last year.
Yeah. That's fair enough. I think, the reason why he is ranked here, and I think it's mostly, I shouldn't say mostly because part of it's Sean Payton. Part of it is like he was a legit top tier quarterback just 2 years ago, and even again, we talked about 2021. He looked good. He didn't look great. He still threw 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, like even missing 3 games, a few, probably closer to 30 touchdowns. So, we'll see. We'll see with him. But he is tied with Kirk Cousins, who comes in, 17th, or tied with Wilson at 17th. Kirk Cousins is kind of one of those, like, in terms of fantasy, I think a little underrated because people are like, oh, he sucks as a real life quarterback. You can't win with him. He's like a tick above a Derek Carr, basically, where he's going to give you probably like 4,300 yards and closer to 30 touchdowns. I mean, if you look at his last since 2018, he's since being with the Vikings, he's thrown 30, 26, 35, 33, 29 touchdowns, while throwing 4,300-ish yards. Last year, he actually threw over 4,500 yards. He has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, I think that coaching staff, and they showed it last year, they're going more towards the passing game. They're probably going to pass it 60-40 or 65-35 split. So I just think it's going to be another Kirk Cousins, 4,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, maybe 10, 12 interception types a year. Doesn't give you anything running, but I think he's just going to be like a pretty solid QB2. Do you kind of agree with that, Dad?
Yeah, QB2 in a super flex or 2 QB dynasty league, or if you want somebody as a backup, he would be a prime one, that's for sure. So he's his numbers, where when you're into 4,500 yards and stuff like that, those are pretty good numbers. So it definitely can. He's got all the weapons around him. He might be minus Dalvin Cook this year, so, but they should still have a decent running game. So I feel Cousins kind of sits right here, pretty good.
Yeah. And last year he finished as like QB7, mostly because you stayed healthy. If you stay healthy the whole year, you're probably gonna finish that high. There's a lot of quarterback injuries last year, but in terms of his average, he's probably going to average 18, 19 points a game, so that's not weak winning, that's not Josh Allen or, Mahomes or Hurts type of numbers where they're averaging 26 plus or 25 plus in 4-point passing touchdown, but he's going to give you a solid 18, 19 fantasy points a game. So he comes in at number 17. That is our first 8. We're going to be back with 8 more. And we'll be looking at the next guys. You can start getting into kind of the top 15 guys that are making a little bit of a bigger difference. Any last words, Dad, before we end today's video?
No, just the bottom, like we said, the bottom end of this list, which is, we're talking top 24 right now. We know there's some interchangeable parts. So, and you should think that way. Everybody has their own opinion and their favorite guys and stuff like that. So, we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, and if you want to go for, you want to go for potential more, that's fine. In the guy like a Purdy or Jordan Love over a guy like a Carr, like we're not going to argue against that. That's for sure. But we'll finish it up and we'll be back with I think QBs 16 through 9. That seems about right. So thank you guys again. Like the video, subscribe. We're up to 183. We're shooting for 200 by June 15th. And we appreciate it. So catch you guys next time.
Adios.